Welcome again to another episode of Ballin with Roy and Edwyn. I'm Roy S. Johnson. This is my son, Edwyn. And again, we are going to talk about what's going on in the sports world, but beyond the field as well, and sports and life from an intergenerational perspective. How you doing, son?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Man, there's always something going on. So we're going to try to rip through at least three topics today. Let's start with the resignation of Mark Emmert as the longtime head of the NCAA. I mean, this is the institution that was created decades ago to oversee collegiate athletics. But if you know the root of the NCAA, it was not created to protect athletes, but protect the schools and the institutions. It was created when we had a different idea on what amateurism was than today. And certainly over the last few years, all of that has been crumbled. It was like Samson went to the NCAA and just knocked it down. We now have a system that is more athlete friendly. The name, image, and likeness has come in, the transfer portal. It is a dramatically different NCAA and college sports than it was years ago. And so the people who were running it before really have to go, and because it's different. And nobody really knows what the NCAA is going to be going into the future. So this is a critical move. They gave this guy a contract extension last year, and clearly now he's leaving. Now they have a year to find a new person. So for you, the NCAA has always been just kind of there. Tell me what you think now of his, not just of his resignation, but how has college sports fundamentally changed? And do we need an NCAA? What's it going to look like in the future?
You need an NCAA because, again, that's college sports. Players are competing in college sports. It's being televised. Most popular sports: football, basketball, then there's baseball. I mean, there has to be an organization, but this is one of the reasons why a lot of kids are going to school off of scholarships or going to school to go pro or use it for education. So you have to have that. I mean, that's just what the nature of part of college is also, which again is revenue. Mm-hmm. So that's bringing money to schools. But the one big change you have to look at too, you got to realize that a lot of athletes now, they're able to have endorsements. Athletes are able to make money now off of their brands. That's one thing. That's the big thing right there too, which has been argued for such a long time, which is part of the reason why they stopped making NCAA games for football and basketball. Mm-hmm. So that's the big change now. The portal, the transfer portal is the big thing. It has been for the last couple of years. Players, you can debate, do players have the right? Should they not? Or a lot of players doing it a little bit more, taking advantage of it probably more than they should. Yes, I would say so.
And what's interesting, so the big difference, though, we got to go back to NIL, because one of the unintended consequences of NIL, and I think most people will agree that it's time for the athletes to have the freedom to make the same money off their own name, image, and likeness as schools have been making for years. But what is happening now, and it's becoming not so quiet, is that NIL is becoming a recruiting tool. It's becoming a reason for players to transfer. There are examples of players transferring from one school to another, and they've been very clear. They did it because they got a better NIL deal. It was set up that it was okay for players to make money as long as the money didn't come from the institutions. So what's happening is the institutions are setting up relationships with outside entities that are then promising money to the athletes. And so they are leaving schools for deals, becoming a recruiting tool. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's a reality now that happened very, very quickly. And I don't know if you can put that genie back in the bottle, but it is kind of dangerous. I do think, and it's kind of dangerous with a small d, I guess, that it is being used as a recruiting tool now. And kids are basically transferring schools because they'll get an extra $100,000 or $200,000 going to that school, not necessarily whether it's a better fit for them, for their team, as a team, whether they like the coach better. They're following the dollar. So that's the new reality that somebody is going to have to figure out when they come in to lead the NCAA.
Well, I think players, and you have to remember too, players were always being offered and given money illegally, whether they're going to afford it, et cetera. So I think now the fact that it might be more open and out now.
It's legal now too. It's
legal now too. Okay. But back then, I mean, for years, money has always been a factor. Just a lot of players, for the simple fact, okay, when you're in college or in school, you don't have a lot of money. Money is a resource that a lot of college students, whether you're athletes or not, do not have. It is a lack of. So in that aspect, I do get it too. But now you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, that changes it tremendously. It's one thing if you were talking about, a couple hundred or maybe $1,000 a month, but you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, that changes it. That there's a lot, because some players, again, as you said, are going to go to a school because of that, and there might be a change in work ethic also too. On top of that, because you're earning the money, because yes, in a way you are an athlete, but at the same time, you've earned it before you even have gotten drafted. Mm-hmm. Anything in the pros or etc., or you started off any other type of career, you graduated, whatever the case may be.
I've got friends who are former college athletes, and they're crying. They're like, "Man, I wish NIL was around when I was around." So already there's speculation about who would take this job, and you have to look at it in a couple of ways. It's like, what is the job? So are they going to have somebody who might come in for say 2 or 3 years to sort of set it up for the next person? One of the names that has already been bandied about is someone that I know, Condoleezza Rice, the former Secretary of State, former provost at Stanford, really big into sports, really, and not just at Stanford. She is on the college football playoff committee, knows sports, clearly knows it as well as anyone in the country, has a real passion for it, has been a leader, no question. It's interesting. Her name always pops up when it comes to a lot of these top positions, but she seems to be very satisfied at Stanford. She's pretty much been able to fend them off. I think she'd be a great choice for somebody who say, look, I'm going to come in and do this for a couple of years. Let's figure out what the NCAA is and set it up for the next person who might be a more long-term solution. I don't see her as being the head of the NCAA for 10 years, but I think she'd be a great option as not interim, but give her the title, but someone who could be the transition person who really helps reestablish the vision of the NCAA in college sports, how it works with the conferences, because right now all the power is with the conferences, and the coaches deal with their conference leaders. And Greg Sankey of the SEC has said he has no interest in being the head of the NCAA. So I think she'd be a great option to help the NCAA figure out what it is and what it's going to be in the long term. But I can't see Condi leaving Stanford for that long term. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's go to the NFL draft. I mean, we're doing this right after just the first round. But I thought it was a pretty cool first round. First of all, first 5 picks were defensive players. Only the second time in NFL history that has occurred. Of the top 18 picks, 6 were wide receivers, though, too. So you got a lot of speed. You got some spice. You got a little bit of juice going there in the first round. But for the most part, it was about defense. It was about stopping people, and linemen, defensive backs, cornerbacks, safeties. That, to me, was what characterized the first round of the NCAA draft. What do you think?
Well, I think the 2 positions I've always been big on in the draft is defense and linemen. Last year was a lack of linemen in the first round, but this year they were back there. Because in my opinion, the best player in this draft, Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama, was the best player in the draft. And again, he was supposed to go top 5. He went 7. I thought he was worthy of going 1 to top 3.
Right. The top 2 players were the Aiden from where is he? Where
Michigan,
was he?
Michigan.
From Michigan, right? Both defensive tackles, and Taylor from Georgia, right?
Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker from Georgia was the first pick, and Aiden Hutchinson was the second pick, went to the Lions. But those were the top 2 guys, and it really set the tone. As you said, they may not have been the best, but they fill the needs of those teams. So again, keep talking about what you thought about this first round.
Well, again, with the first 2 picks, Trayvon Walker, I was extremely excited because there were later on, and especially in Mel Kiper Jr., his depth chart, there was a possibility of him going number 1 as opposed to Hutchinson. And again, I like Hutchinson. Hutchinson was good. I don't think he necessarily deserved to be one of the top 4 for the Heisman. He doesn't really give me JJ or TJ Watt vibes, or he's not necessarily like the Bosa brothers, but he's good. You definitely get a pure pass rush from him. With Trayvon Walker, he definitely has to work on the pass rush, but he still has that. But you have a guy that can you use in multiple schemes, because if you saw in the highlights, first of all, his coverage is good. He can cover. He can pass rush. He can stop the run. So you have a guy you can put all over the field, whether it's outside linebacker, eventually play some defensive end, put his hand in the dirt. put him in coverage so you can use him. And again, that, the Giants, I think the Giants surprised me because, again, my favorite pass rusher, or if not defensive player, was Trayvon Thibodeau, the defensive end out of Oregon. I liked him a lot. And again, was he worthy of being top 5? I thought he would. But again, did I think the Giants would go another route with Evan Neal? Absolutely. But again, there's a lot of players that, and again, I'm happy with the pick that Baltimore had also. We picked a safety too out of Notre Dame. That's something that we need. We always had, Ed Reed, great safeties. But again, our defense, Baltimore had 17 injuries last year.
And for folks who don't know, Edwyn is a huge Baltimore Ravens fan. Always been a Baltimore Ravens fan. Clearly didn't follow his daddy, who's a Cowboys fan, but probably smart for him because daddy's been hurting for decades. But go ahead, talk about your Ravens.
No, but I'm a Ravens fan. But no, it was just really good again. And we did it. We made a trade. Now again, Lamar Jackson was not happy. We traded Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals. So again, he's reunited with Kyler Murray. That's good. But now you leave him high and dry without a receiver. So you always want to talk about Lamar not being an accurate passer, struggling to throw the football. But if you get rid of your best receiver, your top weapon, what are you supposed to do, though? Sometimes you cannot replace players with draft picks or trades, etc. Some players just cannot be. So I understand, again, there was some lack of production in some years. But again, he had, if I'm not mistaken, 93 plus catches last year, too. So again, that didn't make any sense. But again, I think the big surprise to me, and I was very excited for the Eagles. Again, they got A.J. Brown. That's a big weapon for Jalen Hurts, a receiver that can go up and get, especially when Jalen, a lot of times you're working on accuracy for a receiver to go up, extend his arms, reach out. That's a big weapon for him. And plus having Devontae Smith on top of that, that helps that offense out too. But to get Jordan Davis, who was projected to go late first round, 21st, 25th, for him to go in the middle 13th, which I think he should have well deserved. He is a big man. He is 6'6", 341. And guess what? You don't like the combine, you can say whatever you want to say about the combine. If you saw the way that he moved, he ran that 40, you would be amazed because somebody that big should not move that fast when you're running a 4.7. So that's what you get. Extreme athleticism, a humongous man who doesn't have a big stomach. He's a more leaner, trimmer defensive lineman. He just has to work on his stamina because later on, he can't get up the field. He was never a pass rusher. He was more of the run stop. He only had 2.5 sacks last year, but he can develop that. With that speed and that athleticism, they can get that there from him.
And there's no question that beyond the defensive headline that this draft was, it was really about these two big trades. I mean, A.J. Brown to the Eagles for the 18th and the 101st pick. As you mentioned, a great weapon for Jalen Hurts. He signed a 4-year, $100 million deal with $57 million of it guaranteed. People often talk about how NFL contracts are not guaranteed, unlike NBA contracts. Well, the $57 million guaranteed, I'll take that one. But that's a great weapon, as you said, for Jalen Hurts. He had 63 catches, almost 900 yards and 5 touchdowns, played in only 13 games last year, but the previous 2 seasons, he had 1,000+ yards in each of those seasons. So I think, that trade, the trade to the Cardinals, those were kind of like made people go, oh, wow, wait, what's happening? I mean, the Eagles really only, the 101st pick, what's the 101st pick? Really only gave up the 18th pick for that. To me, that's a great steal. Excited for Jalen, excited to see what happens with the Eagles, and excited to see what happens with Kyler Murray too in Arizona. So beyond the defensive headline, the 2 trades, the 2 big wide receivers were also the big line, the big storyline in the first round of the NBA draft or NFL draft. So I was already moving on forward. My mouth was moving faster than my brain. NBA playoffs, man. First round of the playoffs, there was only one sweep. Now, and that sweep was the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, we've been talking about what a state of chaos the Lakers are in. The Nets have more talent, but what is going on in Brooklyn? Kevin Durant really was not a marquee player at all. He clearly talked about overthinking. Here is a clear superstar talent. He was tweaked and teased by Charles Barkley. They created the meme. So Barkley said he's not the driver of the bus. Great teams have a lot of great players, but if you're going to be that number one guy, you can't let your team go out in a sweep. And then the other big story there is Ben Simmons. I mean, you sent me this tweet, which was absolutely hilarious. This guy said, Tiger Woods nearly lost his leg in his life and had several back surgeries, and he played sooner than Ben Simmons. What's the state of the Nets, and what are they gonna do? Because they've got talent, but it's like the Lakers. The Lakers don't have talent.
Lakers don't have talent.
Brooklyn has talent, but it's all in their head. What's up with the Nets?
I can start. Okay, so I'll start with KD first. I'll start with Kevin Durant first. Other than the fact that Boston played tough defense, physical defense with him, I think that's the first time we have ever seen him play like that in a playoff game, ever get shut out of a game like that in his career. Because again, Kevin Durant, in my opinion, many other opinions, is one of the top 5 scorers, greatest scorers we've ever seen of this game. So for that to happen to him is a big thing. And again, you can talk about his size-wise. He's not a big guy. He's skinny. He's damn near 7 foot, but he's skinny. So again, they were physical with him. That's a part of it. But again, he is the bus driver. He is the bus driver for this team. Some people might say Kyrie is, which clearly is, and I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. But no, the best player on that team is Kevin Durant. And when you get shut out like that, most likely you will not win. You can't win if your best player does not play up to par. Because again, in game 1, yes, Kyrie had a good game. He did. I admit that. But again, everything with Kyrie in terms of the way he thinks, it's a commitment issue for Kyrie. Kyrie has only played, I think, 4 times his career. He's only played 60 plus games in his career. He's always going to find a reason to not play, to not show up to work for whatever his beliefs are. And again, take out Ramadan, that's his religion. That should be the only belief of his that is understandable, that is excused. But when you talk about the non-vaccination, even if you want to talk about the earth being flat, there's always some type of...
Always something.
Yeah, he believes he's an activist. I mean, even going back 2 years ago, with everything that happened, he wanted to not have a season, just focus on the injustice with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. He didn't want to go back to the bubble. He thinks he's an activist. Look, you have a great stance. Your heart is there. You're not LeBron. You're not Muhammad Ali. You're not Kareem, Bill Russell.
Nobody.
You're not any of them. Now, you're a great player. You are talented. You are box office. That is true. But you have commitment problems. Moving forward, the Nets should not sign him long-term. It should be year to year because there's no commitment. You have to question, does he always want to play basketball? Because somehow, some way, there's a loss of focus. And we clearly seen that. That's the problem with him. Going to Ben Simmons. Again, between him and Kyrie, those are the 2 athletes right now that have commitment problems. You ask, do you really want to play basketball? Ben Simmons, again, you don't know what you're going to get with him moving forward. You don't know because where he's at mentally, because he met with the Nets want an explanation. You said you were going to play. You didn't play. You didn't try to give it a go and play, maybe 10 minutes. Oh, no. You didn't want to play at all. Why is he getting so much publicity sitting on the sidelines in street clothes in your uniform?
Because he wore every color of the rainbow. You couldn't miss him.
Outfits, why is he being shown for his outfits, but not even, you can't even being warm is trying to get in the game. And it's all mentally, I'm having trigger trauma from last year. I don't understand. You played poorly. So you can't handle a big city, a tough city crowd and fans like Philly. Okay. So you were never going to go to the Knicks. You're not going to go to the Lakers because you can't handle that, obviously. But this is just an excuse. That's all it is an excuse. And you clearly show, not just as an athlete, but as a man, you have no mental toughness. So when are you going to come back from this? Because this is the type of things that can affect your career. He might never come back the same again, because what teams will want to contribute to try to take chances knowing that, I'm going to have a mental lapse because I still have trauma. And how do you hurt your back if you have not played since June? I understand you can hurt it possibly working out, but you have not played since last June. How did you hurt your back? I don't get that.
I mean, for me, the Brooklyn Nets, for all of their talent, are actually in a worse position than the Lakers because you're a driver of your bus. First of all, where's this bus going? The wheels have fallen off. The driver is overthinking. You don't want a driver who's overthinking. You want a driver who drives, right? Yeah. Your team just got swept. So your best player was beaten up, was humiliated, and clearly drove this bus off the cliff, a sweeping cliff. So that's your best player. Your point guard has clearly now demonstrated, as you said, a lack of commitment. I still go back to him leaving Cleveland and decided he wanted to go somewhere and show who he was. Brian went to Brooklyn, went to Boston, left Boston. So you're on your third team since LeBron talking about you want to be the driver of the bus. Yeah. I'm not letting him drive anywhere because no telling where his mind is and which direction he's going to drive the bus. And now you got Ben Simmons. I know more about how Colin Kaepernick can play than Ben Simmons. Colin Kaepernick hadn't been on the field in 5 years, but I at least have seen him throw. We haven't seen Ben Simmons do anything but go in his closet and find colorful clothes to sit on the bench. So this team has issues that I'm not even sure, certainly from a coaching and a GM standpoint, you can't fix. You got to bring in a guru, clearly a mental health expert, and I'm sure they already have that. But, God bless Ben Simmons. We never want to make light of mental health issues. He just has to really find something that suits him and what his capabilities are. And I'm not meaning his basketball capabilities. Yeah. I mean his mental capabilities, his heart capabilities. Can I ask something real quick? Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Again, I was going to say, or two, you want to take, mental health is serious. I understand that a lot of people are going to give him a pass because of that, because of the seriousness of this. I understand that. But my thing is, before last June and that poor playoff performance against the Hawks, when you were getting paid, when you were getting this money, you were a 3-time All-Star and you're ideally one of the best defenders in the league. Why was there no mention of your mental health? There was no issue up until Doc Rivers says, we don't know if we can win a championship with you at point guard. Now you don't want to play for the Sixers ever again. So now your mental health is an issue, but when you were getting paid and even when you're not showing up, you still want to get paid? It doesn't work like that. You sign a contract, but if you don't show up, you don't earn. That's money that you have not earned. So that's all I want to say. I always want to bring that up because before we get there, the mental health comes out after this. But before that, there was never any talk about Ben Simmons' mental health.
Yeah, and there are certainly high functioning people with mental health challenges. There are people every day in every walk of life who are going about their jobs, who are managing their mental health challenges, either through medication or therapy or whatever treatments they want to give. So it's not surprising that he could manage them while still playing. So that's where the breakdown is. You're right. I don't believe the mental health challenges just showed up after Doc Rivers said that. So you were managing them before. Maybe you took what he said as a personal trauma, but clearly the treatments have not been there. Whatever you need to do to get back on the court has not happened. We all wish Ben Simmons luck and wish him that he has the ability to come back in the fall, to come to training camp and show the kind of player that he can be, which we've already seen, as you mentioned, a multi-time All-Star. Let's wish Ben Simmons the best. All right, before we wrap up, I want your predictions on the 3 series. And after the first round, you need to take a little breath because we got some good series coming up. First of all, Miami and Philly. Jimmy Butler is the leader of that team. Clearly, they have some injuries. There's some cracks in that number 1 seed. Philly comes in, had a tough series early on, but they seem to be relatively healthy. They may have some bumps and bruises. What do you think about that series?
I mean, look how long the series lasted against Toronto. So if you're struggling against Toronto, how do you think you're going to do against a tough team like the Miami Heat, who play tough defense, who have shooters also? James Harden's going to have to show up. He's going to have to show up. He's going to have to be the James Harden of old of Houston. That's for one. And yes, you're going to have to continue to feed Ben Simmons because you're pretty much going to have a battle of big men between Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo again. So they're going to have to spread the floor out. They're going to have to get their shooters involved to be able to beat them. That's for one. That's going to be a tough series that can go to Game 7.
Oh, I agree. That's at least a 6-7 game series. Miami clearly has the home court, and if it goes to Game 7, it's in Miami. So I think this was going to be very entertaining. Thinking Philly has the capability to win, but it's not going to be easy for either of these teams to get out of this series. So don't think this is going to be a short series. This series goes at least 6 games, if not 7. Another great series, Milwaukee, Boston. Both of these teams are confident right now. They're playing well. You got the best player in Giannis, in my view, the best player in the league, and the Greek freak, the guy who's just capable of doing anything almost anywhere on the court. You got a confident young Boston team that seems to have its head in a good space and playing well. So I think this is going to be a great series. It could go another long series because I don't think one of these teams is that much better than the other. So it's going to be a great series that also could go 6 or 7 games.
I think it will go to a game 7. Again, this is the best defensive team in the league. So
they're talking about Milwaukee.
No, I'm talking about Boston.
Okay.
Boston has the number 1 defense in the league. So again, they're going to be able to be physical. Because again, Giannis is bigger and stronger than Kevin Durant. Mm-hmm. So if anybody can defend him, but can actually take that toughness, that physicality, it would be Giannis. I think they're going to wall him off. And again, not having Chris Middleton is a big thing, would push them at a big disadvantage because Chris Middleton is the closer for that team because he is a shooter. Giannis is not a good shooter, but again, they have Grayson Allen, you have Drew Holiday also. So Giannis is gonna have to be able to kick the ball out. Those guys are gonna have to be able to make shots because they're gonna make sure he cannot get to the basket also. But Giannis is also gonna have to fight to get to the basket to go up. He's gonna have to go to the free throw line, whether he misses or makes them. Of course, he's gonna have to make those free throws though also. But I think if it comes down to Giannis having to make a game winner to, let's say, win the series, to not force it to go to, let's say, a game 7, chances are he might miss that shot though. Now, a lot of players like that aren't really the best shooters at times. They will make them when it counts. But I think if it comes down to that, whether it's him or Drew Holiday or Grayson Allen, I think they're going to miss that shot, and that ends up going to a game 7. And again, one of them will win, but I think it's straight up. It's going to go to a game 7. I think it's going to go past game 6.
And I think it's going to all those series are going to go so long. We'll be able to talk about them next week. One series that might not go that long is Phoenix and the Mavs. This is the first time the Mavs have gotten out of the first round in a long time. Phoenix seems to have found its footing. They had some struggles early on. They've got some injuries. Chris Paul is coming off one of the best NBA playoff games in league history, shooting games 14 for 14. I believe he had 8 assists and 5 rebounds to take his team into the next round. I don't know if he's got the stamina to be that player every night for the rest of the playoffs, but I think this series, could end in 5. Love Dallas, love the fact that they've reached the second round, but Phoenix is on a mission to not just reach the finals again, but to win the championship this time. So I think they could win in 5. What about you?
I think it goes to game 6. And again, that's something that the veterans like Chris Paul, you don't want to do that because it's bad enough you had to go that long with the Pelicans, who you're supposed to be superior to. But it went that long with the Pelicans, and they had a lot of fight. Give the Pelicans credit for that, being a young team that clearly was able to show a lot of toughness, a lot of grit too. They fought. But again, Dallas is a younger team, also a little bit better. Definitely have their star player, Luka. I think it goes to game 6 just because Dallas, I believe, will win at least 2 games, at least 2.
Okay. All right. Now, the one series that's yet to be resolved, you got Memphis. Now, Ja Morant, still think one of your favorite players, one of mine as well. I think everybody's rooting for Memphis to play Golden State in the next round to see Ja and Steph Curry go at it. They're up 3 games to 2. Do you think they're going to close it out and face Golden State in the next round?
I do, because again, in this matchup, you have 2 young teams. And again, Memphis went to the playoffs last year. It's been a while since Minnesota has gone to the playoffs. It has. And yes, I'm not going to lie, Karl Anthony Towns has stepped up. That whole team has stepped up. But again, Edwards made a mistake. If you know you need a 2-pointer to win a game, you don't step out to the 3-point line and cut them off. You have to cut out the inside. So that was not a rookie mistake because this is the second year, but that was a rookie mistake though. You know what I'm saying? It was a young player mistake. I think they're going to close it out just because, again, I think the more talented team is Memphis. Obviously, Ja Morant is playing on a whole nother level. In my opinion, he is the MVP now because he's still in the playoffs and Jokic is out now. So I would have to go with Memphis. And if they play Golden State, that's going to go to a game 7.
All right, we'll leave that one for the next week. We'll see what happens with this series. 2 young teams going at it, 2 young, small, emerging titans, but a very entertaining series so far. Let's see what happens with them. I think we got great series all around. Phoenix, Dallas is going to be a good series. I just think Phoenix is a superior team. So we solved the problems of the NCAA. We still got some more NFL draft. I think there's going to be some more trades. I think you're going to start seeing quarterbacks being taken in the later rounds. So that's always good. People look forward to that. And then of course you got the NBA playoffs. So as always, young man, great chopping it up with you. Great hearing your perspectives. I'm proud of you and proud of all the research you do. Some of these clearly you know more than me, but I take a little credit for helping training you, giving you the passion for that. So until next time, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and keep balling. See ya.
Bye.